Arcadian Vanguard presents The Wrestling News in your daily wrestling newscast for Thursday, April 6, 2023. Good morning, I'm Mike Sempervive. We begin today with last night's AEW Dynamite broadcast live on TBS from the UBS Arena in Elmont, New York. In the main event, FTR defeated the Guns to win their second AEW World Tag Team title and avoid having to leave AEW per the stipulations of the match. The win marked FTR's 10th Tag Team Championship, encompassing AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, AAA, NXT, and WWE's Raw and SmackDown brands. During the show, AEW President Tony Khan made a special announcement.
Before AEW was founded, 4 pioneers, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and Kenny Omega, put on a show called All In. It was the biggest independent wrestling show of all time, and it got interest from around the world. Now, Flash, 5 years later, AEW is going to make our debut in London, England, Sunday, August 27th, for the first ever AEW All In.
Adam Cole also joined Khan to make the announcement that AEW All In would be held at London's Wembley Stadium. To date, the only pro wrestling event ever presented at Wembley was the WWF's SummerSlam 92, which drew over 80,000 fans and was headlined by Bret Hart against the British Bulldog. Jay White made his official AEW debut during the opening segment of the show, joining Juice Robinson to attack Ricky Starks before the scheduled match between Robinson and Starks could get underway. Khan later announced that White had signed with the company. MJF Day was celebrated during the show with the AEW World Champion addressing a friendly Long Island crowd and being presented with the keys to the town of Oyster Bay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MJF Day. I am your host with the most, the devil himself, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. And right now, we are here to celebrate the most important day of all, MJF Day, and we're celebrating it live in the most magical place in the world, known as Long Island.
MJF opened the segment by singing his own rendition of Pennies from Heaven with a live band. In the show's 3 championship matches, Jamie Hayter retained the AEW World Women's title against Riho. House of Black successfully defended the World Trios title against Best Friends, and FTW champion Hook defeated Ethan Page. The win brings Hook's record to 25-0. In other results, the Blackpool Combat Club jumped Hangman Adam Page, and Sammy Guevara defeated Commander. In other results, after the Blackpool Combat Club defeated 3 independent wrestlers, they jumped Hangman Page, and Sammy Guevara defeated Commander. In more All Elite Wrestling news, Nigel McGuinness is officially signed on with AEW, according to an announcement made yesterday. The former Ring of Honor World Champion appeared last Friday night at Supercard of Honor as an announcer, but it wasn't yet known at the time if he would be returning to the company in a full-time capacity. It isn't known if he'd be working with ROH or strictly AEW going forward. McGuinness had most recently worked for WWE from 2016 through 2022 as an announcer for NXT and NXT UK. In more Ring of Honor news, Brian Cage is currently a free agent, with his contract having expired Friday night at midnight shortly after his defense of the ROH World Six-Man Tag Team title at Supercard of Honor, according to a report yesterday from Fightful Select. Cage had reportedly agreed to work through Supercard of Honor as opposed to his original March 31st ending date. Although a long-term contract is in negotiations, it hasn't been worked out. Tony Khan has expressed interest in keeping Cage, who is still a co-holder of a Ring of Honor championship. Interest in Cage has also been reported in WWE, with key members of the WWE roster also expressing hope for his coming to work there. In ratings news, numbers for last Friday's SmackDown have been slightly amended by Nielsen in order to take into account some preemptions that occurred in certain markets for weather coverage, according to WrestleNomics. The new total audience figure for SmackDown is 2.373 million as opposed to the 2.484 million that was originally calculated. The rating in the key 18 to 49-year-old demographic was downgraded to a .66 from the original figure of .69. Last Tuesday's NXT drew 555,000 viewers to the USA Network, according to Showbuzz Daily. That total is down more than 10% from last week's 620,000 viewers. This was the second lowest total audience for NXT for 2023 so far. The rating in the key 18 to 49-year-old demographic was .13, representing 170,000 viewers, and down from last week's .16 key demo rating, according to WrestleNomics. In corporate news, AEW has hired Adam Hopkins, former Vice President of Communications for WWE, according to a report yesterday from PW Insider. The report mentions that Hopkins officially started with the company last week at the St. Louis Dynamite taping. Although his official title with AEW isn't known, over the course of his 26-year career with WWE, Hopkins worked in public relations, media relations, and corporate communications. Hopkins resigned from WWE last January in the wake of Vince McMahon's return to power in the company. And before we leave you today, we'd like to remind you that however you consume your content, you can find the wrestling news 24 hours a day and 7 days a week across social media. On Twitter, follow us at Wrestling News AV. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling News AV. The Wrestling News can also be found on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube page. And for those who utilize Amazon Echo devices, just tell Alexa to play the Wrestling News podcast. And remember to make sure you add podcast at the end. Once again, for daily updates, breaking news, and more, follow the Wrestling News across social media. And that's the news for today. If anything happens, we will be here to tell you about it. No clickbait, no paywall, just the Wrestling News. The Wrestling News is a division of Arcadian Vanguard, and the Wrestling Newscast is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network.